Tensions flare. Again, India and Pakistan trade accusations. Hours after ceasefire agreement, in a troubling turn of events, just hours after India and Pakistan announced what was meant to be a full and immediate ceasefire, both nuclear-armed neighbors are accusing each other of violating the agreement. The ceasefire, brokered by the United States after 4 days of intense cross-border strikes, the most severe military confrontation between the two countries in decades, was intended to prevent further escalation and open a path toward peace. But reports of renewed shelling and explosions have cast doubt over the fragile truce. Ceasefire agreement undermined by renewed hostilities. Late Saturday, sounds of artillery fire and explosions echoed across Indian-administered Kashmir. BBC reporters and local residents in Srinagar and Jammu reported flashes in the sky and blasts shaking neighborhoods, suggesting that hostilities had resumed despite the diplomatic breakthrough. India's Foreign Secretary Vikram Misri publicly blamed Pakistan, stating, "For the last few hours there have been repeated violations of the understanding we arrived at earlier this evening. This is a breach of the understanding." He added that Indian armed forces were responding appropriately and called on Pakistan to address these violations. Pakistan swiftly issued its own statement, pushing back against the accusations. And pointing the finger at India, Pakistan remains committed to faithful implementation of the ceasefire. Notwithstanding the violations being committed by India in some areas, said a spokesperson for Pakistan's Ministry of Foreign Affairs, our forces are handling the situation with responsibility and restraint, despite the crossfire of accusations. Pakistan's statement called for calm and urged communication through appropriate channels to ensure the ceasefire holds. Troops on the ground should exercise restraint, the statement urged, signaling a desire to keep tensions from boiling over. The road to ceasefire. 4 days of intense conflict. The agreement came after a relentless 4-day barrage of military activity that saw missiles, drones, and heavy artillery exchanged across the line of control LOC, the de facto border in the disputed Kashmir region. Tensions erupted following a brutal militant attack on 22 April in the Indian resort town of Pahalgam, in Indian-administered Kashmir, where 26 tourists, 25 Indian nationals, and 1 Nepali were killed. Eyewitness accounts claimed the attackers targeted Hindu men, further inflaming communal and political sensitivities. India immediately blamed Pakistan-based groups, though Pakistan denied any involvement. In retaliation, India launched air and artillery strikes on what it described as militant training camps and logistical facilities in Pakistan and Pakistan-administered Kashmir. Pakistan condemned the strikes as unprovoked aggression and responded with its own military operations, resulting in a rapid escalation. By Saturday morning, Pakistan reported that 36 people had been killed on its side, including civilians, in both Pakistan proper and Pakistan-administered Kashmir. The Indian Army, meanwhile, stated that at least 21 Indian civilians had died due to Pakistani shelling. U.S.-brokered ceasefire and global diplomatic response news of the ceasefire was first made public by U.S. President Donald Trump, who took to his Truth Social platform to announce the deal. He stated that the ceasefire was the result of direct U.S. diplomatic intervention. U.S. Secretary of State Marco Rubio and Vice President JD Vance were reportedly instrumental in the effort, spending 2 straight days in talks with Indian Prime Minister Narendra Modi and Pakistani Prime Minister Shehbaz Sharif. Rubio later confirmed that both nations had agreed not only to halt military action, but also to begin diplomatic talks on a wide range of unresolved issues. These discussions are expected to take place at a neutral venue, although the exact location has not been disclosed. This is a crucial first step toward a more stable future for South Asia, said Rubio, urging both nations to honor the terms of the ceasefire and begin meaningful dialogue. Pakistan's foreign minister said that diplomacy had involved 36 countries, highlighting the global concern over the escalation between 2 of the world's most heavily armed nations. Secretary General Antonio Guterres welcomed the agreement, praising all efforts to de-escalate the conflict and expressing hope that it would mark the beginning of sustained peace talks. UK Prime Minister Sir Keir Starmer also weighed in, confirming Britain's behind-the-scenes role. "I'm pleased to see today that there's a ceasefire," he told reporters, noting that Foreign Secretary David Lammy had been in continuous contact with both sides. The task now is to make sure that that is enduring and is lasting. Long-standing dispute over Kashmir reignited. The region of Kashmir lies at the heart of India and Pakistan's long-standing animosity, claimed in full by both countries, but administered in parts. Kashmir has been a flashpoint since the subcontinent's partition in 1947, leading to 2 full-scale wars and countless skirmishes. The recent violence has reopened deep wounds and heightened the risk of further conflict. Both India and Pakistan have large military presences in the region, and the prospect of continued hostilities between 2 nuclear powers has alarmed the international community. India's External Affairs Minister, S. Jaishankar, confirmed the ceasefire and described it as an understanding on stoppage of firing and military action. However, he reiterated India's hardline position on terrorism. India has consistently maintained a firm and uncompromising stance against terrorism in all its forms and manifestations. It will continue to do so, he said. In a televised national address, Pakistan Prime Minister Shehbaz Sharif took a more conciliatory tone. The ceasefire has been reached for the benefit of everybody, he stated, adding that peace is essential not only for Pakistan and India, but for regional stability and prosperity. A fragile peace and an uncertain future. While the ceasefire announcement was met with cautious optimism around the world, the renewed reports of shelling and mutual blame have raised concerns about whether either side can or will stick to the agreement. Diplomats and analysts alike warn that without immediate and sustained communication, the ceasefire could collapse entirely. With both governments under domestic pressure and nationalist sentiments running high, leaders will have to balance political imperatives with the need for restraint. The world will be watching closely over the coming days, not just for signs of peace, but for the kind of courage and vision it takes to transform a fragile truce into lasting stability. Thank you for watching InfoHub, your source for trusted news and insights. Don't forget to like, subscribe, and turn on notifications to stay informed.